What is going on, my friends? Cubs fan Han here, and I am stoked that we have The Mandalorian coming in under a week by the time I get this video to you guys. And to celebrate, I've got Alex from Star Wars Explained on the channel. What's going on, Alex?
Hey, what's up, Andy?
So tell me the story in your words on how we became friends.
We both got invited to the EA event for Fallen Order.
Yeah.
And we got to experience Galaxy's Edge together. And it was your first time going. And I had already been, so I don't know, we started talking Star Wars, and I was like, oh, this guy really loves Star Wars. And so I just became kind of invested in, like, I'm just going to watch him go through Galaxy's Edge and have fun. And so, yeah, we just talked through that whole event and hit it off, so...
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't notice at the time, but when we were building our lightsabers, which you got to do for the second time, Alex recorded my reaction. So that video that I posted on Twitter, the moment when we ignited our sabers, he's like, instead of focusing on his own, he's like grabbing his phone to record this moment. And I love that video. So thanks again for doing that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, I remember how I felt when I did that the first time. So I was like, I'm just gonna watch him do it.
It's a cool... Yeah, I feel like I've met... It's hard to meet... Tell me if you feel this way, but it's hard to meet somebody who cares about Star Wars as deeply as you. And I felt like I met my match, or even superior in this vein. I think you care about Star Wars on the same level or even deeper than I do, and I think that's awesome.
I think anytime we go to like those events, that's where you kind of meet your Star Wars people,
your
or
match.
At Celebration. Something like that, obviously.
I still haven't
like
done Celebration.
all of my friends who I love dearly don't care about Star Wars nearly as much. They love to go see the movies with me, but that's about it. So, yeah, when we go to these events, it's always fun to like kind of meet someone new who gets it.
They'll go to Star Wars, they'll enjoy the movies, but they don't make YouTube channels and ramble on endlessly about obscure characters in the Star Wars universe.
Bunch of normies.
Yeah. So this is going to be a bit more of a podcast style video today, and we are both amped for The Mandalorian. I think you and me both saw the trailer footage, and there's a lot to be excited about and a lot to speculate on. But I think what I'm really curious about is how much... This is a first experience we have with a live-action Star Wars TV show. We've seen it in, in Clone Wars for animation, Rebels, Resistance, etc. for the animated side, but the live-action feels a bit different. And so I'm really curious to see which characters that we already know are going to find a way into The Mandalorian, either through cameo or as central characters. And we did see characters like this, and like in Rebels, we saw Princess Leia or things like that. And so I don't think it's out of the question, but we want to speculate here on a couple characters, more than a couple, that we think may have a chance, and we'll kind of give our take on how strong we think that likelihood is. So getting it kicked off, I think Hera is somebody that I'm really interested in out of the Phoenix Squad, because first of all, we kind of got a little tease with this on Ghost showing up in the Rise of Skywalker trailer. And so she's pretty significant to the rebellion. This time is shortly after the fall of the Empire. The Empire's still kind of crumbling. It's only 5 years after, so I could see Hera making an appearance potentially. What do you think?
I also could. Part of me kind of hopes that by then she's just taking some time for herself and relaxing. She's been so busy. She has a child. Yeah, like take a spa day, girl.
Yeah,
but yeah,
some blue milk.
The fact that she's going to be in The Rise of Skywalker, maybe not like prominently on screen, but the ghost is there.
Right.
I just have to believe that they didn't put her in the cockpit for the trailer, but like I think that we'll be able to see her or Jason or somebody in that cockpit. I think that she's probably going to appear in The Rise of Skywalker. Oof. Also, we know that after the fall of the Empire, she was not in charge of... Well, she was kind of in charge of Alphabet Squadron. We don't know where their story is headed yet.
Right.
Like, the first book only took place 6 months after Endor. So she was still involved in the war and the cleanup. So if that's still going on, then yeah, she might still be out there.
Definitely. It would be interesting too for me. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever seen an animated character then transition to live action.
Saw Gerrera.
So okay, Saw, but even Saw it was like young Saw in the Clone Wars,
right.
And then old Saw.
It's still
so a bit of a disconnect there, but this would feel pretty much the same age. So I'll give you Saw Gerrera. You got me on that.
He did feel like they just were like, oh, this could be Saw Gerrera.
It felt like a totally different take on the character too. Like Forrest
really
Whitaker's
did.
Saw Gerrera was way different than Clone Wars Saw Gerrera to me.
To be honest, I was a little relieved he died early in that movie. I was like,
you didn't like Forrest Whitaker's Saw?
Not really.
I wish that he would have just been his own thing, because I kept comparing him to the Saw Gerrera that we knew in the Clone Wars, and I just kept thinking, how does he go from that to lies, deception?
Right.
You know.
I think they're doing a pretty good job of showing us the in-between stories for Saw with Rebel Rising and Star Wars Rebels, and we're gonna see more in Fallen Order. But yeah, like
true. Oh, I
to make
forgot
that
about
jump
that.
from to make that jump from Clone Wars to Rogue One was pretty jarring.
It was fast. So we did throw Sabine on the list too from the Phoenix Squadron. Now I think there's a little bit stronger of a tie potentially to Sabine for the Mandalorian versus Rise of Skywalker, because she's Mandalorian. And you know, how much of Mandalore are we going to see here? How much is Sabine's history going to play a role? I don't know if she would or not. I would love to see Sabine in here personally. I'm not sure if she would make it or not. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really think she'll appear. I just get questions about her a lot because I think people want to see her live action.
Yeah.
For her, I see her more likely at this point in the timeline being off trying to find Ezra and doing the things that she was saying she was going to do at the end of Rebels. I don't see that journey taking, I get 5 years. It could, but I think that she'll be off doing her own thing.
And here's something I will say that I don't want, because I would love to see some of these characters on our list in The Mandalorian, but what I really do not want is something like, say, the Battlefront 2 campaign, where it feels like it's a tour of the galaxy of, all right, let's give you a mission with Luke. Let's give you a mission with Lando. Let's give you a mission with, all these different characters that show up and Han and do cameos. And so, to me, while Sabine is a character I'd love to see in live action, I don't want this to turn into every episode it's like, oh, this character showed up, and oh, this character showed up. If they show up, I want it to make sense with what's going on and not feel out of place. Which brings me to Boba Fett, because I think Boba Fett is one. Look, we all gotta peel your biases away a bit, ladies and gentlemen. We love Boba, all right? Everybody loves Boba Fett, all right? And we would love to see him show up in this somehow. But I don't see a strong connection. Maybe that could exist, but this is a Mandalorian. This is a story about a Mandalorian. Boba's not a Mandalorian. He wore the armor. The only real connection with Boba Fett and the Mandalorian potentially is the bounty hunting business. And so maybe that could bring him in some way, but I feel like from just from a story standpoint and where the fandom's at, you bring Boba Fett in and set him next to this new character, and it immediately diminishes that character. And so, honestly, even though I love Boba Fett and I'd love to see more of him at some point, I don't know if I want him in this show.
First of all, I want to say I totally agree that this shouldn't be like a let's bring everybody in. Yeah. Part of the reason I'm so excited for The Mandalorian is that it is separate from everything else largely. There's familiar elements, but yeah, I don't want all of the familiar characters to come in. I want it to stay its own weird thing for the most part. A sprinkling here or there is fine.
Yeah, kind of like Rogue One. We didn't have much familiar, but we got some pretty damn satisfying moments too.
And even then, I felt like Rogue One went overboard at points. I really don't like the 3PO cameo. That one felt like an unnecessary addition.
Interesting. I didn't hate
Boba
it,
Fett,
but I can see where you're talking.
it just seemed like, did we really need to stop and focus
Right.
on this one little joke where like it just killed the momentum for me?
That's fair. It's fair.
For Boba Fett, I agree. I don't think he's going to be in it. There was an article on the Hollywood Reporter, maybe. Someone put something out that said that the first episode of The Mandalorian has a big in-universe spoiler, which is a weird headline. Like,
Right. I saw that
it's
article.
not a spoiler. Like, we'll see it. I think what it means is there's a big revelation, or it will be big to us. I think that the first episode might be like, well, ever since Boba Fett died, I think they're going to say he's dead in the first episode.
Interesting.
And just get that out of everyone's mind to be like, no, he's still in that Sarlacc pit. His armor did make it out somehow, but I think he's probably dead.
It would be maybe sensible for something to be said because that's still pretty fresh in the universe where we're picking up. And we are involved clearly in the bounty hunting circles. And so something like that being mentioned could make sense. So
I do wonder how people will react to that. I could see it not going over well, but I think that their goal is probably to be like, the Mandalorian is a clean slate, and Boba Fett kind of was too. I mean,
you're trying to dash people's
original
hopes and
trilogy.
dreams already, Alex.
Sorry. I think that they're going to try to make the Mandalorian the new Boba Fett, for lack of a better term.
Interesting. So let's talk about Hux. Hux is one that I thought about, and here's what made me think about it. So I've been reading The Spark of the Resistance, and I'm really excited to start Resistance Reborn, by the way, which by the time this video hits is out, and you guys are already probably halfway through it. But in that book, it casually mentioned that Hux was very young when he picked up command in the First Order. Now, the First Order is still not very established, but this is, let's see, it's 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and Return of the Jedi is about, 29, 30 years from, I think it's 30 years after, 30 years after is where Force Awakens picks up, right?
Yeah, yep.
And so I think it's probably, Hux is one that I thought that'd be kind of cool, but then when I really looked at the timelines, I still feel like it's too early for him to show up. But he's kind of one of those characters, I think, at least in The Last Jedi, where we've got little glimpses of him, but I feel like there's more I'd love to see unpacked with Hux, kind of like what we got with Tarkin in, say, Rebels. So what are your thoughts on that?
There was another article that said that the Mandalorian would explore the origins of the First Order, and I think what they meant by that is we're going to show how the First Order was allowed to become a thing at all because the New Republic mismanaged some stuff.
Right.
I don't think there's specifically, especially in Season 1, going to be like, oh, look, they're making new Stormtrooper armor already or something like that.
Phase 2.
I don't think Hux is going to show up. I think the First Order, or what will become the First Order, is probably out in the unknown regions trying to survive or just get set up at this point. Like, I think they're going to be their own thing. Maybe in Season 2 they might start to sprinkle some of that stuff in, but for now, I think that they're still a long way off.
Exploring the origins of the First Order is maybe the main connection to the main story, the Skywalker saga, so to speak, that I think I would really love to see. That, to me, is really compelling. It makes me wonder if we could get glimpses of Snoke. And I think a big criticism that The Last Jedi received, and we won't open this can of worms. You guys know you don't want this can of worms on my channel more. I've beaten the horse. It's dead. But a lot of people wanted more information about Snoke. Do you think that The Mandalorian could serve as a potential way to give little tidbits about Snoke? Or do you think that they wouldn't go that direction?
I don't think they should. I think Snoke deserves a novel or something, and that's it. Like,
okay.
I'm not desperate for Snoke tidbits. Like, he was what he was to me, and now he's dead, and I'm fine with that. Like, I cheered in the theater when he got cut in half. So I don't really I'm not like desperately trying to learn more about him. I'll be interested when they reveal it, but I don't know that The Mandalorian is the place to do that.
Yeah. If it was, I wouldn't want it to turn into a big origin story for Snoke. But if we do end up exploring the origins of the First Order and have little tidbits, I would personally be okay with that. And to your cheering of Snoke in the theater, I will admit, I really don't think that my jaw has dropped in my lap that far than that moment when Snoke was taken out. Now, kind of bleeding into the old Empire instead of New First Order, Grand Admiral Thrawn. Do you think we could see Grand Admiral Thrawn in this? Part of what makes me think no is I've seen some rumors building in the interwebs that Thrawn may be getting his own live-action show. And I also feel like he might be too iconic for this show. Again, I think that it would make sense to have characters who are familiar to keep the story interesting in nostalgic ways, so to speak. But Thrawn to me feels like too big of a splash, especially for the hardcore fandom. So I'm personally not sold on it, but he is around, and we don't really know exactly what happens to him. So could we potentially see Thrawn?
My gut says no, because he was with Ezra last we saw him at the end of Star Wars Rebels, and I mean, even Timothy Zahn, who created the character, hasn't been allowed to explore what happened to him after season 4.
Which is interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, that's just his fate is so tied with Ezra's, and Ezra is Dave Filoni's creation, and I think that he just gets first dibs on when we get to learn what happened to him. So the only way I could see Thrawn appearing is if, and this now kind of ties in with Sabine, is like if the end of season 1, she's like, she comes to the Mando and is like, we need help finding our friend. And then maybe they all go out into the unknown regions and find Thrawn and Ezra. Like, then I could see it, but I don't think that's the journey that this show is going to go on. I think, just from my own speculation, I think it's got something specific to say and do, and I don't think that's it. But it would be cool just to see Thrawn go from a book character to animation to live action. Like, that would be the first character to do anything like that, as far as I know.
I want Thrawn to have his live action show. When I read those rumors, it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, I can't get excited about this because my fan heart just will explode. Because I want to see him so badly in live action. And so hopefully that's how we get him. I think if I saw him in the show, it might almost be disappointment because I want him to have his own show. I don't want him to just be a cameo character to just toss into the Mandalorian. There's so much depth and so much complexity with how the genius strategic mind of Thrawn that I would just love to see that explored in much, much greater detail. Now, here's one that I think is very likely. I think there's a good chance we could see Bosque in this. We see a fight with Trandoshans. We know he was a mentor that helped young Boba, but that doesn't necessarily connect the Mandalorian. But he is a bounty hunter. We've got this bounty hunter thing going on. Trandoshans, am I dreaming, Alex, or what do you think?
No, I think finally I can say yes. I feel like I've been a real negative Nancy this whole time, and
you are
no
such a negative person.
Bosque, I do think, has potential. Yeah, we've seen the Trandoshans. There's a connection there. The only weird thing to me about all this is, like, so we have IG-11. It's not IG-88. IG-88. Right. It's IG-11. And Dave Filoni. And by the way, I meant to mention that Dave Filoni is involved in The Mandalorian, so he might give the go-ahead to be like, yeah, let's go find Ezra and Thrawn in the show. But back to this character. Yeah. I guess I am a little worried that they are just going to do like analogs for all of the famous bounty hunters that we'll never see Zuckuss and Forlom. Like, I don't think they would do that for everyone. we've already got a Boba Fett analog and an IG-88 analog, so like,
right.
Yeah, bring in Bosque. It's just a guy in a suit anyway.
What about Dengar? Dengar's another one, and he did make an appearance in Clone Wars. And I looked this up. Did you know that Dengar was voiced by Simon Pegg?
I did.
So come with me for a bit. How about Simon Pegg as Dengar?
He has a history of acting in Star Wars, so I mean, why not? Like,
why not?
Whenever they, like, I would want his voice to come out. It's not like it's the most iconic voice, but I think Simon Pegg could do it. Put enough prosthetics on him, and
so I thought I knew Simon Pegg's voice until I saw The Boys. This is way off track. I don't know if you saw this, but it totally rattled everything I knew about Simon Pegg. Like, I was questioning if this man in front of me was Simon Pegg because of how different he sounded in that show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. He could be in it, and we might not even know it's him.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have known Unkar Plutt was Simon Pegg if I hadn't seen, like, behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah. All right, how about Bo-Katan?
Bo-Katan, that to me, it would be like the perfect end to the season, is to have her show up. So
with the Darksaber?
Yeah. Give us a live-action Darksaber.
Live-action Darksaber? I would just fall out of my couch and just turn off the TV. That's enough.
They were talking in the, not the latest teaser, but the trailer about Werner Herzog, who's gotten like the most voice time on all of the teasers. He was talking about like, oh, it's such a shame what happened to your people. I'm sorry they had to suffer, and like, is your world better since the revolution? Like,
right.
The last time we saw Mandalore in Star Wars Rebels, it seemed like things were on the up and up. Sounds like that didn't happen.
Based on the trailer.
Yeah. So I kind of like this idea that like I don't want this show to just be a cool looking guy doing cool guy things. Like, I want it to be Star Wars. I want him to be cool and do cool things, but I want this to have a message, an underlying arc, a theme. And I think that him kind of trying to regain his honor, he's like not happy about working in the bounty hunting profession.
Right.
He thinks he could be a better person. And on top of that, his people have been knocked down. Like, what if it's about him regaining his honor and Mandalore regaining its honor? And along the way, you get Bo-Katan with the Darksaber. Katie Sackhoff voiced her in the Clone Wars and in Rebels. I love her as an actress. I love her in Battlestar Galactica. I think she could pull off that look. Just dye her short hair red. Like, you did it.
Yeah.
So I would really love to see her pop up at like the end of season 1 and be like, we have work to do. Because the way the animated shows, especially Rebels and Resistance, have worked, the first season mostly takes place on like this one planet.
Lothal.
Right. You have Lothal for Rebels and Castellan for Resistance, and occasionally they leave, but mostly they're kind of saving their budget, and they're waiting to see how the audience response is to it. And then in season 2, things really open up, and like they go off world, which is true in both Rebels and Resistance. So we might get the Mandalorian season 1 kind of being focused on a handful of planets, a handful of missions, and then in season 2, things really open up. We get a bigger galaxy, stuff like that.
So I think for me, almost more than Bo-Katan, I would just love to see a lot of Mandalore. This is just me, but Clone Wars especially, all of the Mandalorian stuff that goes on, all of the conflicts there, all the tension and the history that we get about Mandalore is so fascinating to me. And especially, I mean, Mandalore has been a center of a lot of action in Star Wars all the way through, Legends and stuff. And so I would love to see a lot happen there. And what gives me hope for this is the show is not headlined by this, the bounty hunter. It's not the bounty hunter. It's not whatever this character's name is, Pedro Pascal. It is the Mandalorian. And that to me gives me the sense that this show is not just about this character. This show is about where this character is from. And there's so much history there at Mandalore that would be so fantastic to explore that I've got all. So it's almost like a new character, but the character I'm saying that I hope shows up here is the planet of Mandalore, because I just think that could open the show wide up, and there is a ton of potential. And Dave Filoni's already explored it, and I would love to see him do it more.
I completely agree. I'd love to see a live-action Mandalore. That still feels like a season 2 thing to me, but yes.
No, season 1. I am impatient. I want it now. Opening shot. I hope you're right. Mandalore. Let's go.
I think that's probably on both Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau's minds. They both have a passion for that culture.
They clearly do, yeah.
So I think that's probably something that they're fully willing to explore.
All right. Well, what do you guys think? I want to hear down in the comments below. What are the characters that you want to see most in The Mandalorian? And you guys can be super stoked because I am going to be covering every single episode on this channel. And so you're going to need to come over here and watch my review of each episode and then head over to Alex's channel, Star Wars Explained, because I know you're going to do all of them. I don't even need to ask you. Are you going to do all of them? You're going to do all of them.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to do. I'm guessing with your wife Molly too, right?
Yeah, I think we'll probably do just episode reviews like I do for all of the TV shows, but then we also are going to do just a sit down, let's talk about it for a while type video.
Let's do 5 videos on every episode so that we can have an excuse to watch it 5 times, because I simply cannot wait. So if you guys have not subscribed yet to Alex over at Star Wars Explained, I'm disappointed in you. Get over there. Subscribe to his channel. Link is down below in the description. Alex, thanks so much for joining me for this video today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, have a good one, guys. And as always, my brothers and sisters, don't forget,